Hi everybody, this is Rhys Barber from Audiology Associates. I have got a really difficult one to show you today. This lovely lady is one of our patients actually. She came to see us about 4 years ago and we managed to clear both ear canals. Very, very narrow ear canal. But has recently been through to see the ear, nose and throat consultants in the hospital on a different matter. They attempted to remove the wax from the ear canals, but they just could not get it out. It just wouldn't budge. So the patient was advised to use a lot of olive oil, and it'll come out on its own eventually. So patient really struggling. Has come along to see us today. So what we have here is a really tiny ear canal. To give you some perspective, what you're looking at there isn't the standard size ulnar tube. That's actually the fine end. I can't accommodate the fine end and the endoscope in the ear canal at the same time. So I'm having to hold the endoscope slightly further back. Now, what makes this a more complicated case is that we have some skin that's detached away from the canal wall because the patient's using a lot of olive oil. There's a lot of dead skin in here. So you can see it's kind of clumped around the entrance to the canal here. So I'm just having to fight this. Now, as we've said before, the fine end's a great little tool for getting into small gaps and for fine, delicate work, but it's a bit rubbish at suction power. So it doesn't hold a lot of suction grip, which means that when you're fighting with skin like we are here, it's not the easiest tool to use. Normally what you'd have to do is peel away from the canal wall. But because of just how small the canal is, there's no room to peel off the canal. So you just have to wiggle it out, which is what we're doing here. We're having to fight the skin every inch of the way. When we look above it, we can see just beyond this little sort of flap that's come off at the bottom of the canal wall here, we can actually see the eardrum beyond. Now, what we have to be really careful of here is what can happen sometimes when you put the suction tube into the ear canal, especially when it's very narrow and you're not holding it to one side with the endoscope. You've got the risk of the ear canal collapsing down around the suction tube, and that's when it can cause real problems, because if that happens, what you end up doing is sucking all of the air, creating a vacuum in the ear canal and sealing that, and then the weakest point of the system becomes the eardrum. So you do run the very real risk of either causing some trauma to the eardrum or, in worst case scenario, actually causing it to perforate. So you've got to be really careful here. You can see what I'm talking about there. That ear canal just wants to collapse down all the time. Even as I'm putting the suction tube in now, I'm just getting the end in, then having to hold it back to stop it from collapsing around. So we're just peeling away from the side here. Let's start to get this out. There we go. You can see it's really coming down. Don't forget, guys, if you do enjoy these videos, you can always like, heart. There you go. Share. That's better. Subscribe for me, that'd be brilliant. And if you are suffering with ear problems yourself, you can always check out the bio page or the channel page, and that will direct you to our website. You can take a look at that. You can book yourself an appointment to see myself or the lovely Mr. Taylor Green. I will get your ears sorted for you guys. Don't forget, we don't always do wax problems. We always we look at hearing, tinnitus, everything else as well. So check us out on the bio page. Now we can see we've got this last piece that's left in here. We've got the majority of this away. You can see that canal trying to collapse down around the endoscope again. We're just going to get a grip on this bottom section here. Just try and pull this out. There we go. We've got a good grip. Now, this patient was super duper nervous coming through, bless her. She has had lots of issues with her ears in the past, lots of problems with infection and other things. So this poor patient was so nervous to come through. So we're talking them through. You can see looking much better there. Talking them through the entire procedure as we're going along. This was the more difficult of the two ear canals to do. I'll warn you in advance, guys, there's no ruler shot on this one. I got so excited that we managed to get this out that I just completely forgot to do the ruler shot. But you'll see everything as it's coming out now. What I'm having to do here, now you can see this one looks a little bit more open. Now the reason for that is, this is a trick I learned from Taylor actually. When you've got a patient with a really narrow ear canal like this, sometimes it's really helpful if you get somebody else to hold the ear and pull it up and back, which stretches the ear canal open a little bit. So I've actually got one of my colleagues, Claire, to come in, and she's holding onto this ear, this top bit of the pinner here, allowing me to get in a little bit further. The reason for that is this is the ear that the consultant had the most difficulty getting anything out of. And you can see there's a lot of dead skin in here again. There's actually quite a large plug of hard wax much deeper in as well, too big to fit out the ear canal, and that's what the consultant had the most difficulty with. Now, in fairness to the consultant, we're seeing this after there's been a lot of olive oil going in, so it may well have softened a little bit to give them their dues, but yeah, there's a heck of a lot left in here, let's put it that way. So we're just trying to work this down the canal. There we go, we've got this softer section at the bottom. Now, with that skin that was detaching earlier on. Now the patient's done the same thing on this side. They put a lot of olive oil in here, so we've got a lot of loose skin that's collected. There you go, there's a piece of it there. Now that tends to come away from the canal wall, and then when that comes away from the canal wall, it causes a few issues. It starts to flick up in front of the suction, so when you're trying to get hold of one of the plugs that sits further in, it's really, really difficult to do that because that piece of skin will keep flicking up and blocking the suction tube. You can see what I'm talking about here. There's this long strip of dead skin. Look at this coming away. Just look at that chunk there. And there's not a tremendous amount of room in here. You know, we're talking this ear canal is pretty chock-a-block, but I've got to get these bits of skin out first before I can concentrate on the plug beyond it. So there we go, just breaking this down now. There's a lot of psoriasis as well on the outer portion of the ear canal, a lot of very dry skin. Now, we saw a patient with psoriasis in Monday's video, actually. There was a patient there. If you haven't seen that one, go and check that one out. It's in our channel page. But that one has psoriasis, lots of really dry, hard pieces of wax. You can see that plug we're talking about further in. So what I'm going to do here, it looks very, very dark in here. I'm just going to try and pull on this plug. Let's see if we can get this away from the eardrum. I'm really restricted in the view here because I've got to stay out of the canal just to try and hold on. You can see how that skin is peeling away. My advice to this patient would be, you know, don't use as much olive oil as you have been using. That's a heck of a lot of olive oil to be going in there. But, you know, quite nervous at this point because we are a little bit deeper in the canal. I've turned the brightness up a little bit on the endoscope. That's the nice thing about the light wand on the endoscope. It gives you the light source. You've got varying degrees of brightness on here. And when you're dealing with this sort of very dark, deep plugs, sometimes you want to turn the brightness up just to give you a little bit of an extra view. So you can see this, unfortunately, this piece of skin at the bottom there. That's what I'm talking about. See how that skin was flicking out to the suction? Now I want to get to the plug beyond it, but this piece of wax here is stopping me from getting down there. So I'm just resting onto that piece of wax. It's quite a hardened up piece. I want to get it away from the drum. I can't really break it down too well. I don't have much of an angle to work with here. If we can get it away from the eardrum, it's going to make a big difference. We can get it closer to the outer portion of the ear canal. There we go. That's what we're looking for, is that movement. Getting this closer to the outer part of the ear canal means I can start to twist this plug and start to break bits off it. There we go. It's on its way. Not quite there yet, but you can see it's on its way down. Now I need to lift this bottom section, and this is where that skin is getting in the way. It's really sort of just down in there. Now, I know there's always people shouting into the comment section, why didn't you just scrape it out? Why did you hook it out? Why didn't you do the other? Basically, the ear canal's too small. We can't get the angle we need to get over the top of this plug. And you know, the ear canal entrance is so tiny, it's really, really difficult to get the sort of the angles and the leverage we need to get over the top. Don't forget, a lot of the curettage tools involve you getting behind the plug and pulling it forwards. So that's why it's not going to be very viable. We'd struggle even to get the forceps in here, to be honest, to take that little bit of skid away at the bottom. Let's see. There we go. So we've smoothed that little bit of skin down. Let's see if we can lift this plug up and over that bit of skin. But you can see what I'm doing there. I'm half getting a grip on the plug and half getting a grip on the skin, and nothing is really moving. If I can just get it up and over the top, or at least try and get rid of that sort of grey material at the bottom. There we are, starting to lift above that bit of skin. There we go, now it's on the move. Now I've twisted it slightly. We've got the slightly smoother, softer surface coming through there. It means we can get a slightly better grip on this plug. Now I'm going to bring this forwards now. A little bit of skin getting involved there on the left-hand side as well, just hampering us a little bit. It's nearly there. There we go. It's on its way down. Great. So we've got this to the entrance, but surprise, surprise, it's too big to fit out the ear canal. So what we're going to have to do at this point is try and keep it wedged in the entrance to the canal. Now we're going to start to spin. Okay, we're going to turn this wax plug. And what we're doing there is taking any looser bits off what we can see, turning the plug, taking any looser bits off again, turn the plug again, loose bits, and we're just going to repeat that process over and over again. Well, I usually start by turning it sort of from the bottom upwards, so spinning it that way, which is what you can see I'm doing here. If there's enough room and if it's a little bit more spherical, then we can turn it left to right as well. So we can only spin it this way, but spin it that way as well, just breaking these tiny, tiny pieces off. But each piece we take away is making this plug that little bit smaller. And every time we get a grip, we're pulling it back to the entrance of the canal, always wedging it clearing away any debris, turn, wedge, turn away debris, turn, wedge. So it's just a repetitive process. Your arms, though, ache like you wouldn't believe when you're doing this kind of work, because it's so tidy. And when you've got a view and you've got a grip, you don't want to sacrifice it. So you do tend to keep your arms in that position for a long old time. But it's coming away. It's nearly there. We're getting there. We're getting there. Now turning it again. You can see I'm just trying to loosen anything I can get my hands on, or the suction tube on my hands. There we go, turned it again. See how these looser bits start to present themselves? And then you can take that away, spin, and more looser stuff will come away. But just a painstaking process. All throughout this procedure, you're checking in with the patient. Are you okay? Are you feeling all right? Any discomfort, any lightheadedness, any giddiness? It's not too noisy. You're going through all these processes with the patient all the time. There we go. It's starting to really break down now. There we are. Now that's what you want to see. Look at the edge coming through there. Brilliant. So we've got that. We've broke that plug down enough to get it out. We can see the eardrum. There we go. So there's the eardrum there. Yes, it looks a little bit messy in there, but that's due to the fact that, this patient's had this wax in there for a little while. It's been throwing olive oil at it like nobody's business. And everything's just got a little bit wet and kind of mushy in there. But now all that plug is gone. The skin in front is gone. All this natural migration can start to happen. But my advice to the patient is for us to see them a little bit more regularly. So I'd like to see this patient about every 6 months moving forwards, just because of the size of the ear canal. We need to make sure that we've got enough, we're not pulling huge plugs out. We're only pulling out what's built up in the last 6 months. Well, guys, that was a bit of an ordeal, wasn't it? But as always, guys, if you do enjoy the videos, don't forget to like, share, heart, subscribe, and all those things for me as well. You'll see myself and the lovely Mr. Taylor Green. I'm pretty sure we're together on Friday. So fingers crossed if clinic works out well. So you'll see us both on Friday. And as always, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of your ears, and take care of one another. I'll see you again real soon. Bye, everyone.